Okay, thanks. So today we're going to really discuss about what PingID is. We're going to really start at the beginning and kind of give you an overview about, exactly kind of what it is really from a general standpoint, and then we're going to go through some policy configurations and some of the more advanced features of that. So I'm Chris Leggett. I'm a solutions architect with Ping Identity. I'm part of the global technical enablement team, Ping.
Yeah, I'm Andrew Goodman. I'm part of the product marketing team at Ping Identity, and after Chris walks through some of the latest and greatest about PingID and some of the policies, I'm going to be talking about rollout and deployment best practices once you actually have PingID configured.
Yep. Thanks. Okay, so to kind of start off with, PingID is Ping Identity's really multi-factor solution. From a user standpoint, it can be an application that's downloaded on the phone. It allows things like push notifications, and users can acknowledge those using a swipe or fingerprint. Okay, thanks. And additionally, it's kind of managed in the cloud. So with that, you kind of have a self-service kind of ability with PingID to enroll and register devices, and that's all kind of managed from the cloud. We also support multiple authentication mechanisms. So besides just using your PingID app, you also have the ability to use other mechanisms such as SMS, OTP delivery, and then things like a desktop OTP as well. We also do another hard token called YubiKey, which we integrate with. So if you're customers now or prospects, and you're familiar with YubiKey, you probably all are. It's like a USB port thing. You just kind of stick in your computer and just push the button, ready to go. So PingID can really integrate seamlessly with all of our applications. If you're protecting your apps currently with PingFederate, PingOne, you can enable PingID to those applications. So it's kind of easy. In addition to that, we support VPN access. We can secure SSH and RDP sessions as well for Windows. So kind of any questions, really? We're going to kind of keep this open. Yeah, go ahead. Yes. So this is kind of a generic architecture of kind of how it works. So the main components of the service is really we have a PingID cloud service that's kind of responsible for the configuration, orchestration of sending out the requests to the device and kind of evaluating policy. We also have the device itself, which has an application on there, which the user can interact with and provide OTP. And we also have if the user's using our browser or something like that to access a resource. So the kind of flow, typically how it works is the user will log in first with their first factor, and then the PingID implementation will kick in. It can either be deployed on PingFederate or on-premise solution to make a request out, or deployed directly with PingOne. So you don't really have to deploy anything directly on-premise or any kind of integration with that. You can just use the PingOne integration directly. So the request will come out from the integration source and go to the PingID cloud service. And then that cloud service will then in turn make a request out to the vendor's notification service. So to make that push notification to the phone. And then the user will acknowledge that push with either a fingerprint, swipe, depends on how we have it configured. It's all kind of configured within the administration console to allow users to do whatever they kind of want or what we ever allow them to do. And then once that acknowledgement takes place, then the device will send a response back to the PingID cloud service and then back to the original originating integration method, so like PingFederate or PingOne. And then the user will get an access. So that's kind of the basic kind of architecture. It kind of applies to all of our integration methods, but we can kind of go into a little detail about some of the other ones. So for VPN, we actually use PingFederate to integrate with our VPNs using Radius. So PingFederate is actually a Radius server that can integrate, and then it uses the PingID adapter to kind of really make the request out to authenticate the user. Additionally, the adapter can also authenticate the user via LDAP to their home directory, like AD, or if they're using Ping directory as well, any kind of directory that PingFederate is actually using. And then they get access to all the resources. Any questions? Yes.
Does it return any radius attribute? Returns any radius attribute to the client?
So PingFed is a radius server, and then if the VPN uses radius as a radius client, we can integrate with that.
Yeah, I mean, does it return any attribute back to the client, like Cisco gateway?
Right. Yeah. So we support Cisco. Yeah. I mean, so generically, maybe I'm not.
Well,
Question.
it returns any, let's say, the user's group membership to the,
Right.
If we specify. I think so far it's not, we are waiting for the feature. I'm not sure it's available yet.
Right. Oh. Where's the product at? There it is. It's in the back. Yeah. It's coming soon. So. Yeah. Yeah. Ron, you might want to move up a little closer.
So I assume that you can use other factors other than an OTP?
Yeah, so the swipe or the fingerprint acknowledgement, and then there's we have the YubiKey as well.
And with a Radius integration, can the Radius client or can the Ping adapter, based on policy, determine which factors are appropriate for that client or application?
So the Ping adapter itself cannot. However, when it makes the request out to Ping 1, there are some policies you can configure based upon that.
And we could have a different policy.
For VPN, there's a little bit less integration you can use. So, but for web SSO stuff, then yeah, there's a lot more.
And for your OTP on the phone, can we enforce a PIN as well as a swipe, or is it just swipe or push right now?
Yeah, I think you can. We'll go into the configuration in a few minutes and we can kind of look and see what's enabled. Yeah. Anything else? No more. Another question. I will change the slide.
You may be getting to this, but could you speak to the device onboard best practices and options, such as?
That would be Andrew. He'll be coming up next.
You'll get to that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he'll get to it.
'Cause we're a customer, we're limited use, but we looking into some best practices and options for that. Awesome.
Yeah, so for the demos today, I'm going to really show the self-service stuff, and if you're really more interested in having custom flows and workflows, then you can use our APIs to kind of create that and use that yourself. But there's a program that Andrew's going to go over later that'll really kind of. Any more questions? Okay, so moving on to the same. We have a Windows RDP integration. You deploy, or an administrator can actually push out the integration directly to the Windows server, and then it kind of works the same way as they always did. So you can have inline registration or enrollment for this as well. So the user will log into the RDP session with their username and password, and then they'll get challenged with the PingID authentication mechanism, whichever has been configured for their organization using the Ping one or PingID interface. So still kind of the same thing. Just shows you a little bit different architecture here. Okay. So getting into really what we're going to really discuss here today is mainly the factors of the other kind of authentication mechanisms that PingID can support. So first, they're mostly organizationally controlled. So that means that as an administrator to your organization, you can log into the Ping 1 admin console or to kind of manage which mechanisms you want to use for the users, and then they can also have the ability, or you can enable them or your users to manage their authentication mechanisms themselves. So besides just having the PingID application on your phone, you can enable the users to have backups like SMS, voice, an alternate email, and then if they forget their device or they've left it at home or they're in a place in their office where they can't bring devices, then they can use one of these other alternative methods to kind of authenticate. So the other one I want to mention here is the desktop app as well. So it's supported for PC and Mac. It does a soft token. It's like an OTP that sits on your desktop, and that can get you in places where you can't bring a device as well. So, and we support YubiKey as well. Any questions? Make sense? Yes, it does.
I believe the question was the voice work over LAN, WAN,
Yeah, it
that
does.
type of communications.
Yep. Okay.
So are there printed or backup codes available?
No, but that might be coming. I don't know, Ron. Sure.
How about grid?
How about what?
Grid?
No.
No? If you're gonna print something, print a
We're
grid.
not going to do that. Okay, anything else? All right, so for advanced features we have, we can kind of set up basic policies with this. So this is kind of where you can get into what you were talking about earlier, where you can kind of select which kind of authentication mechanism they can use during a specific policy. So it can be based upon like context attributes, such as like, where you're located. So we can set predefined a geofence around like your office. And then we can use your IP address, where you're located, to kind of create a policy that says, for this, use an OTP, use a fingerprint, or even use a silent authentication approval for that. We can also take another policy is, if you've authenticated once before, then more recent authentications within a time frame, we can also do like a silent approve or challenge them in a separate different way as well. In addition to that, we can also kind of check device health posture. So we can integrate with an MDM, which we can show today as well. And then that shows you how, make sure that your device is managed, and then they can use that PingID application to authenticate. Other things such as, device type, OS version, all that other good stuff can be also checked too to allow authentication.
Which factors support Geo-fence?
We'll go over that. I'll show you.
Perfect.
Okay. So this is kind of the end of my slides. This is the kind of things I'm going to show today, and we'll try to rock this live. Hopefully it'll work out well. So we're going to do we'll do a basic self-service onboarding or enrollment of a device. I'll show you authenticating with fingerprint swipe. You'll see all the wonderful different alternative mechanisms we can use, and then we'll create kind of 2 or 3 policies. One to show you how to kind of create the MDM manage one, and then we'll do some geofencing as well.
Chris, we have one question before you get into the demo.
Where are you? Oh, there you are.
So when we talk about geofencing, there are like when you have some connections or users coming from a foreign country through a VPN within the United States.
Yep.
Does the geofence has the ability to detect that, or just based on the client IP?
It's based on the location of the device. We can also check IP address with that as well.
Yeah, with the VPN, the whole problem is like the VPN is going to be from, let's say, California.
Yeah,
The IP, it's going to be from California.
sure.
So how does the geofencing help in that
So we can check the
situation?
IP from California, and then we can also check the geolocation of their device, if that's enabled on it, to see where they actually are located.
How do you get that? Do you have service connection with the carrier of the device, or how do you know it's really the devices from, let's say, from some country, like
Right, right.
foreign country?
Ron?
Hi. We use the location of the device by the Google and the Apple location services. So it's like a combination of GPS, cellular triangulation, and also Wi-Fi if available. So it's pretty accurate. So from the laptop, we can get the IP also.
All right, cool. All right, so let's see if this guy can pop up.
You guys want to step in?
Come on. We'll throw that in the trash and deal with that later. So to kind of manage PingID, I'm gonna show you like the logging into Ping1. So that's where you can kind of manage policies, configuration for PingID. So we'll go in here, go to setup, PingID. Here's our configuration. This is kind of a main page for all the kind of enablements of allowing everything other than policies, basically. There's also some other things such as client integration that allows you to integrate with VPNs. And then there's branding. So if you kind of want to change the look and feel of the self-service pages or the application app using your own like images, then yeah, we can do that too. So I'll just check these out real fast. I actually have a demo company here using that, and you can kind of see this is what it will look like. All right. So the first kind of message you'll see is like a support message. This will be displayed if there's an error or any kind of other messages displayed on the screen. You can add whatever you want to that. There's an enrollment date too. So if you want to like configure PingID for your users and then you want to set like a mandatory date towards somewhere in the future, you can add this up so users can actually bypass multi-factor when they if they don't want to enroll, but they have to be enrolled by the end of this date. Then there's also Yep. Sure, man. Is that better? Yes. All right. You're welcome.
Maybe one more.
Maybe
one more.
One more?
Yeah.
Is that better? All right, cool. Thank you. All right, so there's self-enrollment too. We can also enable or disable that. We have enabled this for this demonstration. And then we have multiple devices. So if the user has multiple phones or devices they want to integrate, we can enable that here. This allows them to kind of self-service manage these devices themselves. So they can enroll with one device, and then once that's successful, we can take them to a device management like application, and then they can manage those additional ones as well. And then we have authentication, so there's a one-time passcode fallback, and that's enabled. And then we have fingerprint, which we've enabled as well, and you can enable those on various devices, iOS and Android. And here's the authentication mechanisms that we can kind of enable additionally to using the PingID application. So for this, we're going to enable SMS and voice, and these are kind of enabled together, and then desktop as well. And we'll throw an email, why not? And as when I enabled desktop, there was another little section that's kind of appeared that was hidden. It allows you to kind of pin protect the desktop application. So we'll pin protect it, make it large, go to 6. And then we also have these columns here for pre-populate and restrict. So what this does is for SMS, voice, and email, we will monitor an attribute in your directory like AD, and then we will push those values out to the PingID service. And so when a user goes to enroll, they don't have to actually enter in some random phone number or something. They can use the one that was found in the directory. Now, if you just have pre-populate enabled, the user can still update that, so that's why there's this restrict column. So they cannot update any of those information that, that they want to do when they add it. So basically, whatever lives in the directory is the alternative source for those attributes. Yes.
If somebody loses their YubiKey, can you self-unenroll that, or do you have to call the help desk and have them start?
Help desk.
Okay.
And the administrator can unenroll you. Yeah. Yep. Maybe I was wrong.
If you got a couple of devices paired up to your account, you can go to the self-service and then unpair the YubiKey.
As long as
Right?
it's not primary, right?
No.
Even if you lose it?
Even if it's primary, it's okay. If you got more than one, then you are okay. If you got only one
Right.
device and this is YubiKey, then please call your help desk.
Yeah.
Quick question. Does the SMS, voice, and YubiKey, do they require a subscription or some sort of service provider?
So we use Twilio for that, and we manage that for you. So
So is it part of the PingID license?
Yes,
Or okay.
yes.
So there's no separate service required.
it's part of that.
Okay.
Hello. So for pre-populating the data for voice and email, can it pull data from an on-prem directory source, or does
Yes, that's exactly where you.
so
can
users
drive it
don't
from.
have to be in Ping 1?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So in this actually, in my demo environment, you actually have Ping directory installed, and that's where I'm actually pulling the data from. So
Okay.
it uses Ping Federate to kind of push that out there.
Okay, thank you.
He's got one more. I got you.
Good morning. Quick question. If there's a level 3 app, how would you build in a proofing session into this workflow?
So for level 3, I mean, so we don't really do proofing or anything like that. I mean, we're doing authentication for that, and that's all. I mean, the proofing already should happen up front. I mean, that can take place probably in the enrollment process where you roll your own enrollment to ensure that at least you have a level 3 or greater, enrollment process or identity proofing. And then you can, lock this thing down with all the restricts and basically don't allow the user to change it, anything. So all the self-service is probably gone, So yeah, it's, I mean, I believe the acknowledgement and the OTPs can possibly go to level 3. Not sure, I don't think we've done the actual NIST, regulation on that.
I believe these are all global settings. Is there a way to create user groups so that if you didn't want them to, if you want to restrict them from editing, you could do that?
You're correct, they are global, and that's coming.
Okay. And second question is, are there plans to make this the first factor for authentication? I think currently you have to provide another mechanism before you can use PingID.
So we do actually support first factor for PingID, or only factor. So, and that is actually, we actually kind of go over that in our administration guide. So yeah, you can configure that with Ping Federate.
You can do some sort of device blessing, username and password, for example, and then from that moment on, PingID becomes only the first factor for that specific device, that specific browser. And if you want, it can also refresh the request for username and password like once a month or so. Like you set up the frequency.
All right, so let's move on to the demo. Check the time, all right. You get a mic, I can't hear you, sorry. Roadmap, Ron?
Roadmap for biometrics?
Okay. Yes, was the answer.
Yes.
We got one more, Chris.
Okay.
So back on the previous slide,
Yep.
it says device pin for desktop, or right? Can we also say security pin for mobile app?
So for like enabling PIN for mobile?
Yep.
Yeah, I think where is that flag? Oh, man. Oh, so you can kind of, disable that.
But we can't set like a separate an app pin or something?
Right, no.
Not yet?
Probably your MDM might be able to handle that too.
Is there a difference between the integration for PingID with Ping1 versus if we tried to integrate with Ping on premises?
So from the policies perspective here, there's not, the only kind of difference is we have this ability to kind of make policies based upon applications. So we have like a pre-canned rule that you can kind of set up, and that's really, when you do it through this admin console, that's really only for Ping1 or applications that are found in the app catalog for Ping1. With Ping Federate, you kind of have a little more flexibility because you can, create adapters, and then you can create authentication policies to kind of challenge.
But as far as the technology and the features,
as far as
they're
which
the
factor
same?
you may want to use, that's still kind of governed up here in Ping1. So.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry.
Can you change the icon on a PingID mobile app?
The icon?
Yeah,
No.
like a push notification.
Not the icon, do you mean like the actual app as it looks on your phone? Or?
Yeah, when you do a push notification, there's a little ID.
Yeah, not that one.
Is it on a roadmap to allow customers to
So we do,
customize
it's with our PingID SDK, so you can kind of roll your own ability within your application itself, and that's kind of where you can kind of go off and do your own kind of thing and support pushing.
So, but we cannot
It's kind of our
change the
branded
icon.
thing.
Yeah, branding.
Yeah. So we're kind of keeping that one, I believe, to ourselves, and that one can be updated right now.
Okay, and also on the voice call, can we customize that? Or change the call ID?
So you mean the like the phone number specifically for the
yes,
voice?
right.
Yes, yes. So you can have different numbers for SMS and one for voice.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, thanks.
And is the license user-based?
Yes. That's about as far as I can go with licensing questions. Okay.
So along the same lines as the proofing question, have you seen very frictionless but very secure way of registering PingID?
So, can you repeat your question?
Yeah, sure. So for registration, right, around the proofing,
Yep.
have you seen very frictionless in terms of adoption by users, but still very secure way to register?
Yeah, I mean, we have are you familiar with so we have a self-service, like, registration enrollment process that we can use. And we will actually go through that right now. So.
And there are best practices in terms of when you're actually rolling out the product to your organization that we'll talk about after he's finished with the demos.
Okay. So let's go through that right now. So I'm going to log into the PingOne doc, which is protected by MFA. So right now I'm logging into my first factor. This is actually Ping Federate, authenticating my username and password against Ping directory. And I did not just, let me unpair this. So let me go back for this user. As administrator, you can do this. So we're going to unpair this device so we can show what the pairing would look like. Okay. And I apologize, Reflector would have shown all the interactions on my phone, but apparently it's not working right now. So, okay. So it's unpaired. So let's log in again. Window. Okay. So we use our first factor username and password. And so here is the self-service PingID registration. So we got our own little logo here, and then we have a download link to get the application if we need it, and it uses the email address that we have repopulated or that's found in AD. I already have the app, so we're going to click this, and then we can opt out because we have set the enrollment date some far in the future. So you get two options when you want to pair. You can scan the QR code with the PingID app, or you can manually enter in the code. So I'm going to just quickly scan this. It's verifying. Got a little thumbs up on my phone. And I got to finish typing in my name. Done. So now it's automatically redirected now. It's going to challenge me for a swipe. So I'm going to swipe here. And the reason why it challenged me for a swipe because that is my default authentication for this demo. So now we're into the PingOne doc. If we want to add additional devices or authentication mechanisms, we can manage that through here. And you can also directly go to this link as well. So if you're not using PingOne at all, you can have your users just go to here and they can still manage those devices. So let's see, did I actually add any? So it asked me to authenticate again before I'm adding another device. And so I guess I didn't save the other one, but we can go back and save it. But so now it's asking me to pair if I had another like phone or something like that. I can actually pair here and add and manage that device like this. So this is kind of a self-service device management. In addition, there was the other self-service enrollment too. That is in line with authentication. So the way you can roll that out in line is you just enable PingID, and then so the user's next stop to the dock, they'll be challenged for enrollment, and they can opt out if you have everything set in the future. All right, so let me go back and add those other sources. Oh, yeah. Okay. And let's see if magic of session management will do this. So I'll just refresh this. Let's kind of add a new one. So now, since we've enabled the other settings, now we have these other options down here available to us to add. So let's pair this desktop app, pull it up, get something else to look at on the screen. All right, so the PingID desktop app will ask me for a pairing key. Just copy this pairing key right here, paste it right there. So pair. And so now I have multiple devices that I can now manage myself as a user. We can also change which one is primary. I'm just clicking on here. And this is all kind of things you can kind of do with your own API. The APIs will allow you to do this as well. Any questions here? Yes.
So what's the difference between a primary device and a secondary?
Yeah, so when you enable primary and when you have multiple devices enabled, like when you go to normally authenticate, it'll always challenge you first for your primary. And if you've forgotten, you have the ability on that screen to change your device to do like maybe the workstation. So I can give you an example of that right now. So let's sign off. Okay, we'll log back in as user one. We're going back to the dock again. But this time, I have like forgotten my device, the battery's dead, whatever, we're not going to use it. So I'll just click the change device here button. And actually on the phone, it actually will acknowledge that as well. And then you can select your other option here. Sign on. So can a revoke? Yeah. So you can the administrator can unpair that device. Yeah. So yeah, you could do it that way.
Are there API endpoints for unenrollment?
Are there what?
API to do that?
Yes. Yes. You can roll the APIs that allow you to do your own like enrollment flow if you want.
Can you kill a device by API?
Yes, you should be able to unenroll a device with API. Yes. Okay. So we'll just log in here. And now the user's in. Any questions? We got a couple more things. Okay. A couple questions, and then we're going to move quickly.
I was wondering if when you want to use something, an application that may not be compatible with PingID, how
yeah, so if you're like using a Windows phone or something like that, and the app can't be installed because we don't support that, you can use SMS or voice to kind of support that for your device. That's kind of the alternate.
Is there any option to specify, like, say, mobile app for web-based authentications and like a YubiKey for VPN on an app basis or like a activity group basis, something like that?
So for specific apps, and you're using Ping 1, yes. For Ping Federate, I don't believe you can right now. For specific applications, Ron, you can't specify which.
Per app, different authentication.
Or what?
The answer, I believe, is not at the moment, but maybe in the future.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what are the options when there's no internet access for a Windows login? No.
What are the options?
If there is no internet access, what are my options?
You can use them all, except probably not YubiKey.
Not even.
I apologize to go back for a few slides. You did mention like PingID supports RDP.
Mm-hmm.
Is there support for SSH?
Yes, on Linux.
So you have a KDC specific.
We have a
for-
PAM module that's installed into Linux that uses the APIs to directly call out to PingID.
Okay, thank you.
One up here.
And a question over, like, is there any limit, like how many users support per organizations?
Mm-hmm.
The reason I'm asking is we have actually trying to integrate with the API to trying to fetch the users for the organization, for the entire organizations. But the way API exposed, like, it's like only one-time job, like it's no presentation support.
That's a good question. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe Ron knows. Did you hear that, Ron?
I get the whole question. We can take it offline.
Yeah, okay.
After we're running
Okay.
out of time.
Okay. Let's kind of move forward. So I have a couple more demos with time. One we can show pairing with MDM. The other one we can show geolocation. Which one? Geo? It's exciting. Okay, so with geolocation, we can, the first thing you have to do is make sure that you have enabled enhanced authentication policies. So that has been enabled, so now we'll move over here to our policy section. And as we can see, there's, expand this a little bit, there we go. Our default action is a swipe. So now we can add policies here. We have, from your company network. This also has some geolocation or geofencing capabilities within it. There's country, so this is based upon IP address. New device, so if a user is registered a new device, we can tell it which authentication mechanism to use. The recent authentication one's kind of cool. So if you've authenticated once and then you've authenticated a second time within a certain time frame we specify, and you're within your company boundaries, we can do a silent authentication. So no interaction from the user from their device. Recent one's kind of the same one without the office. And then we have mobile version and then the applications, which only really applies to Ping 1 right now. So let's go ahead and do the company network. So for this, we're going to do an IP address. Let me get my IP real fast on my phone. All right, so I'm going to enter that in. I think that's right. That looks good. Okay. Yes. Really? I thought it was like the device of, no, man. Well, it's probably the same one because we're on this. All right, well, then we'll show a negative. Yeah, there is a video. So we'll do a fingerprint for this one. And we'll just save it. Okay. So now we'll log in. We'll log in again with user 1. They've already been paired, so we won't have to go through that process. And so, got my notification, and it asked me for a fingerprint. So, now we're in. So, it's been using, so, yeah. Yeah, so we got in, so that's where you can kind of see where you can get different challenges. Now we can add a geolocation to that too. So we can go down here, and I have a very large field here. So this is based upon the geolocation of your device, and what Apple is really saying, because I'm using an iPhone here. So let's actually move this under, where are we? Yeah, I see it, Yeah. We're about here, right? Is this it?
We're north of the river.
I don't, there it is, Jesus. All right, cool. All right. So now we're saying, so now we're inside the geolocation or the predefined location. Let's save it. And actually what we're going to do is do a silent approve. So I don't have to interact with the phone really at all. Let's save this. Oops, let me log out. Single sign-on. All right, so we'll log back in. Hopefully my geolocation is good. And so we're out there, I didn't even have to acknowledge. So that's kind of the silent approval authentication for that. And that's kind of how we do the geofencing policy. Does that make sense? Cool, not cool? Sort of cool? Yes.
Can you write a policy like in the building, in the geofence plus swipe?
So, yeah. So the policy, you know, we could change it to just do swipe there. So if this is all met, the IP and the actual geofence, then you would have to swipe. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, but then we might want a different policy, like if you're not in the fence, then you do something else.
So if you're not in the fence and you don't actually meet this policy, you can come down to the default action.
Oh, is
It's
that like
like, and then you could just, you know, deny.
Oh, perfect.
So there you go. So if you're not in your building, you can't use anything. So, cool. If they don't work, then yeah, the policy will fail and it'll drop down to the next policy in line. Yeah, yeah. It's for all the policies basically. So the default one has to, you know, either let them in or not, basically. Any other questions?
Can you configure policies to say like if you change the network or change the environment to the
Can you repeat your question, please?
it's more like you move from one network to another. Right now, the office is moved to Starbucks or something in a very batch. Can we configure a policy or something like that to bring to the authentication that way? Without an agent?
I don't think so. Not sure. We can talk about it after this if you want.
Yeah, we can talk about it after. We can take it offline.
Okay, I'm done.
Cool. Presentation. All right. So the good news is that my parents are from Brooklyn, so I can speak really quickly because we only have like 7 minutes. But I grew up in Chicago, so I can answer questions very slowly.
There you go. You got that.
Okay, so PingID rollout best practices. So all of the features that Chris just went over, I mean, I'm constantly amazed at what the team in Tel Aviv puts out, both the greenfield features as well as the ones that come from customer input. And it's more than just features that come from customer input. We get a lot of input surrounding deployment, registration, really the entire rollout process within an organization. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is the input we receive and kind of where and how we've recorded that input. So the successful deployments that I've spoken to customers about really follow a pattern, and they have 4 key things that they all did and do really well. So avoiding business disruption. Often you'd probably adopt a solution like PingID to do just that, to make your employees more productive, to make processes like authentication more efficient. Oftentimes with end user software, if you don't roll things out correctly, you can actually do the exact opposite of what you're trying to do by adopting PingID. So making sure to avoid business disruption is key. Maintaining security, both in terms of customizing the policies and the product to your organization, making sure those security needs are met, and also the actual rollout and deployment process needs to be secure. And by customizing that process to your organization, you can increase security surrounding that entire rollout process. Supporting your help desk, doing a great job during the actual rollout itself will help you kind of avoid spikes in help desk calls. Your help desk is actually going to be really excited about adopting a product like this. Overall, they're going to decrease tickets by some customers' estimates by half, 60%. As you know, forgot password tickets are a pretty big source of help desk tickets, so it can really be an exciting thing for the help desk, but they do need to be supported during that process. The last piece, communicating effectively, kind of upfront creating a strategy of when to communicate, how to communicate, who should be communicating to who, and what the message should be. for next steps. So each of these actually has tangible advice that we can give you, actual tactical things that you can do to make sure you do a great job at these 4 things. So starting off, avoiding business disruption. So the number one thing that we hear from customers is separating the actual registration process from access to resources. So kind of authoritarian decision-making of when users need to switch over. It's very efficient, but as we've seen in world history and other events, authoritarian measures aren't always the best way to do things. Very efficient, but not super user-friendly, and doesn't always result in kind of a seamless transition. So separating those two and using the PingID registration web application typically ensures that you can have a seamless registration process. The second one, set a pre-cutover adoption goal. Whoever your target group is, generally 75, 80% of them should be migrated before you have any sort of hard cutover. Should ensure success. The third, involve diverse departments when selecting authentication methods. By diverse, it's kind of 2 types of diversity, both function and location. So in terms of location, if you're in an area with bad, let's say, cellular service, using SMS or voice OTP, probably not the best idea. For function, if you have facilities where employees need to wear gloves, fingerprint authentication, probably not the best option. So making sure you consult different types of departments before rolling it out. Third, ensure backup authentication methods are in place. In the case that you lose your phone, the phone powers off, making sure you have a secondary device registered. Places like airplanes where the Wi-Fi might not be so good, being able to use the mobile app without Wi-Fi should solve that problem. So making sure you have the ability to authenticate in case your primary authentication device isn't available or doesn't function. Last, setting yourself up for success and kind of a continuous process of success by making sure that you update new hire information. So making sure processes are documented, how-tos, how to register, how to authenticate, why you use PingID, making sure that's in all of your new hire information. Next, maintain security. So we had a question about kind of best practices surrounding security, both during the rollout process as well as just kind of PingID existence in your organization. A couple things. So first, requiring on-site enrollment for first-time device registration, making sure that you don't have fraudulent devices enrolling in this process. The second piece, locking down the registration process to known data within your Active Directory. We had a question surrounding that before. So making sure that the phone numbers and email addresses used in the actual registration are actual corporate data, corporate information. Third, setting device requirements for using PingID. This is kind of the endpoint health piece, so making sure that the operating system's up to date. You might not allow rooted devices to register. Things like, is it a registered or unregistered, a corporate device or not a corporate device. So you can use all sorts of factors to decide, is this a device that we want registering for PingID? Next up, teaching users to report fraud. So users have the ability to report fraud, and the 2 most common scenarios that they'll see are when a kind of rogue device gets registered or a rogue authentication request comes through. So if a user says, oh, you know what, I didn't try to log into this application, it's asking me to authenticate right now, maybe I should report fraud there. So teaching users to report fraud when they actually see things like that. Finally, customizing PingID to your organization. So we know phishing is kind of on the rise, and a way that people generally phish is they kind of take generic security screens, present them to the user, and say, this is a process you have to go through. By customizing the PingID application with your logo, your kind of company colors, corporate branding, you can make sure that users will only use it if it's actually your corporate process. All right, run through it. Supporting your help desk. Migrate users in phases and also offer flexible enrollment. So whatever your target groups that you want to enroll and register, make sure that you do it in phases. That does 2 things for you. 1, it protects against help desk spikes, so you're not going to get the entire company calling the help desk at once. And 2, it allows you to learn as you go. And kind of to the next point, creating canned responses to anticipated issues with each with each individual phase, you should be able to recognize patterns and trends and what people have trouble with PingID in your organization, and that way you can help increase the velocity that the help desk operates at. So if the help desk is getting the same question or the same 5 questions over and over, creating canned responses to those questions to just shoot back out to users when it comes in. Next, address learning curve challenges in advance. Kind of have how-tos, step-by-step processes, videos on how to do things like enroll, authenticate, and things of that nature. Number 4, actually brand new information as of last week. I want to give a quick thank you to Rochelle Lev, who's one of our senior technical writers, who just created something called the PingID End User Guide. It's essentially a cookbook for your help desk that they can use, and they can customize to whatever their needs are. It goes through a lot of the different use cases that PingID performs. Goes through a lot of the different authentication methods. Let's say you're not using YubiKey in your organization. You can take that guide, take the YubiKey section out, give them the rest of the guide. So whatever your help desk needs to actually function, support your users, we actually have a pre-written guide to give to them. Lastly, utilize PingID Cobranding. When users see a screen that doesn't have your corporate information on it, oftentimes they might think it is phishing when it's not. So while you can use it to both prevent against phishing, you can also use it to decrease the amount of false positives in phishing reports that you get. All right, how are we doing on time? What do we got? All right, I think I'm over by 2 minutes. I'll go faster. Communicate effectively. Communicate frequently, starting 6 to 8 weeks in advance. A lot of the companies we've spoken with said about 4 weeks out, you should be communicating at least once a week. In those communications, have diverse people communicate. And what I mean by that is 1 week have the IT department communicate the change. The next week have a business unit manager or business unit director communicate the change. Maybe the week after that, have an executive communicate the change. So have it coming from all places and all audiences. The point I just made about executive communications, make sure your executives know the value of PingID and they're able to communicate it themselves. Oftentimes what's helpful is using pre-authored emails from your executive team to send out to individuals or groups using PingID. Communicate with regional and business unit stakeholders. Make sure that there's all the language requirements are met in actual communications or authentication requirements like we talked about before. Facilitating registration and enrollment events. A lot of the customers we talked to made sure that every single on-site location had its own registration event. So for users to ask questions, register on site, they have someone there to help them with it, and also make sure that you have recorded webinars for those users working remotely. Lastly, communicate with videos. Can't stress this enough. In addition to the end user guide, we also have video templates that you can use to create your own videos, and those are for registration and authentication. So make sure users know exactly how to authenticate, exactly how to register, walk them through the steps that they're going to need to take to do that. Okay, lastly, you might be thinking 2 things. 1, that's a lot of information. How do I remember all that? And is there more? The answer is yes to both of those things. Or I guess, how do I remember that? There is online, as of about a week and a half ago, there's a PingID Rollout Best Practices article on our knowledge base site. Includes all of this information. So go there to check it out. Second, how do I make sure that my PingID rollout is up to snuff, that it's using best practices, that we're making sure that all of these requirements are met that we just talked about? So we actually just rolled out 2 brand new services called PingID Solution Accelerators that can help you with this. One service is meant for PingID deployments that already kind of have the product configured, they're using it, but you're using it in a pretty small fashion, more of a targeted fashion. Maybe the IT team's using it and you're testing it out before you roll it out to the rest of your audience. So that would be the PingID Adoption Acceleration Workshop. That's going to teach you how to roll out this service to your entire organization with a communication strategy, security strategy, all of the great things we just talked about. The second service is more for people who are brand new to PingID, so haven't rolled it out at all yet, need help with configuration in addition to the change management rollout piece. I do have more information